The entire contents of this podcast and website are based upon the opinions of Tammy Garcia and her guests, unless otherwise noted. The information on this podcast is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended as medical advice. It is intended as a sharing of knowledge and information from the research and experience of Tammy Garcia and her guests. This is the Naturally Inspired Podcast, coming to you from our 1890 homestead in Johnstown, Colorado. I'm Tammy, and I want to thank you for joining us. Let's get started and help people feel good so they can do what they love for longer. Today on the Naturally Inspired Podcast, Cathy O'Brien Phillips is joining us. Cathy is a survivor of human trafficking and the MK Ultra program. She is an international speaker. She is an author. Two of her most popular books are A Trance-Formation of America and PTSD, A Time to Heal. She is an advocate for ending crimes against humanity, and she has been sharing truth for over 3 decades. Her latest contribution is the documentary film, 1,000 Pieces. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Cathy O'Brien as much as I did on the Naturally Inspired Podcast. I want to thank you so much for being on the Naturally Inspired Podcast today.
I appreciate it. This is a wonderful opportunity.
You wrote A Trance-Formation of America in 1995. And what an impact that made. And how are you feeling now with the current state of what's going on and all of that? What do you, some people, I think, who have been calling out this truth for so many years, decades, this must be both a incredible time, a validating time. There must be so many emotions surrounding this time for you.
I have waited for this my whole life because I was born into MK Ultra mind control. I was born into an incest-based family that was heavily involved in the local Masonic Lodge where politicians were. And those politicians were sanctioning child pornography back then. And I'm not young. This was back in the earliest 60s when this was going on. And it was being sanctioned so they could target children like myself, because the pedophile agenda is exactly that. When children are sexually abused, it creates a dissociative identity disorder in the brain that makes them prime candidates for mind control. It makes people highly suggestible, easily led, and could be part of the robotic society that the New World Order agenda was striving towards. And that was even back then. I was early on, but nevertheless, I was born right into it. My father was given immunity from prosecution for selling me into the project. So that shows how ingrained things were even back then. The information on MK Ultra mind control had come over on Project Paperclip after World War II. So it was in full swing. The CIA, which I've never known them to not be involved in that criminal activity, was very much a part of things back then. And so I was thrust into CIA, MK Ultra mind control, while my father was given immunity from prosecution. Mm-hmm. Well, the local politician at the Masonic Lodge was Gerald Ford. He went on to become unelected president. Mm-hmm. He went on to have the likes of George Bush, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld in his cabinet, all the same people. It's been the same handful of criminals putting in the New World Order for so long. Right. Well, my life's experience thrust me into MK Ultra, deep into the swamp, under their mind control, working black ops. The human trafficking operations were going on. The Drug operations were going on. We were being sold out to New World Order controls very slowly. And much of this happened in the wake of the Kennedy assassination.
Mm-hmm.
When Kennedy was assassinated, people were traumatized. And our brains respond to trauma the same way as it did like when I was a little child when I was being sexually abused. It creates a heightened suggestibility. So at that time, our whole country was subjected to a mild takeover where the roots of the corruption that we're seeing today were being planted.
Yeah.
Well, for 30 years, I was worked under these perpetrators, all of whom are named in my testimony, Trance-Formation of America.
Yep.
Mark Phillips was an intelligence insider who saw what was happening on the highest levels of government. He knew that our country was being rapidly sold out to the New World Order and our constitutional values were eroding. In mind sciences, he was looking for the positives of the power of the mind is so beautiful. And he was looking how that could be used to help people. And instead found that that information was being used to control people within civilians like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so outraged. He was outraged at the rampant pedophilia that was going on to help generate the slave society, that he rescued my daughter and I right out of the swamp in 1988. And it was so early on. He was such a hero. And he had the keys to healing, which he handed me, which is the most amazing thing of all, because to be able to heal from the kinds of torture and absolute scientifically structured MK Ultra mind control that I endured is a testament to not only the strength of the human spirit, but the resiliency of the human brain to be able to come back from mind control.
Right.
I'm so fortunate to have healed and to know that healing is possible for everybody, that even now today, as people are waking up from mass mind control, which has been socially engineered into our society, into our education system, and really took a strong hold with COVID.
Yeah.
People need to wake up, and the healing is here.
It's
My life's
amazing.
experience, and for me to see people succumbing to mind control is very sad. When I see them masked up and standing 6 feet apart now for over a year, people aren't hugging each other anymore. They're not talking with each other anymore. That we've lost so many of the beautiful things that we need to get back. And
I agree.
the
I
healing
agree.
methods that Mark taught me can apply, and anybody can do them. They're in PTSD Time to Heal, and we were able to release that information. I think it's just crucial at this moment in time. So yes, I have such a wide range of emotion. I'm so glad that people are seeing what has been going on behind the scene for so long with the rape and harvesting of children and the trafficking of children. I'm so glad they're finally seeing it.
I
It
bet.
seems new to them, like it's like everything has gone to darkness, but in fact, it's the darkness has come to light.
Right,
It's
because these are things that the average person recognizes now. 10 years ago, Cathy, people didn't know what MK Ultra was or had never heard of it, let alone the fact that human slavery, human trafficking was an issue. If you'd have told somebody that human trafficking was an issue 10 years ago, they wouldn't believe you. And
I
now,
was telling them that 30 years ago,
yes,
and no, they didn't want to believe it. Who would want to believe it though,
yes,
really? So I considered it seeds of truth planted because I had to get the information out there to help my daughter.
yeah,
She was being she was taken as like a political prisoner in the state of Tennessee, and she needed understanding and help. And she was just a young child and in need of that. And instead, the FBI, who's so complicit in covering up human trafficking and covering up crimes against humanity like those
Mhm.
perpetrated by the Clintons. They were literally covering up my daughter's case
Mhm.
and testifying against my trafficked daughter. And
Right.
I was so outraged. I had to speak out, just getting help any way I could, educating law enforcement, educating mental health professional, educating anybody in the population, any patriot that wanted to know the truth, because they were feeling it and seeing it too. And there
Mhm.
was like there was a huge movement in the early 90s that the media was manipulating minds, and they were like trying to tell people, wake up, the people that are being put to sleep by the media. And then there were horrible things happening as people started to wake up and want out of the United Nations and want to stop the human trafficking operations. Then we had like the Oklahoma City bombing, Ruby Ridge, Waco. We had so many aspects like that that were happening. And what that was trauma being imposed on the people.
Mhm.
Because, again, whenever trauma occurs, whether it's sexual abuse of a child or it's the trauma of a nation, like happened with the Kennedy assassination, those traumas are when we're highly suggestible and easily led. And
Right.
at that time, the militias were forming across our nation. That is our line of defense against the takeover of our government by
Mhm.
uh, the kind of exactly what we're experiencing today.
Right.
And the media would always say, it was a malicious attack on the people that, and referring to the Oklahoma City bombing or the Unabomber or whatever it was they had going on at the time. They always used the word malicious because in the subconscious mind it says militia, and it was trying to undermine the forming of the militias. So
Right.
this kind of thing has been going on for many, many years. And what we're experiencing today with total absolute censorship and suppression of truth
Mhm.
is not new. It's because people are waking up, and the
Yes.
media and the whole deep state new world order perpetrators are panicking. So
Yeah.
they're using everything they possibly can to suppress truth,
Right.
because truth frees us from fear and truth makes us free. We need truth now more than ever, and that's why there's such a war against it.
I would agree 100%. It's the thing that I struggle with today, Cathy, is, relaying truth to people and people gaslighting and just, almost like their brains do not want to accept truth because the truth is so painful. But the very thing that we need to do is come to terms with the horrors on this planet so that we can stop them. Right? We have to acknowledge
Absolutely.
them first. And some people just gaslight and say, "Well, that's unbelievable. That's just unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. Why would they do that? Why would this happen? This doesn't make any sense. It's unbelievable." That's the gaslighting I hear. And I want to kind of dive into this a little bit more so people can kind of look at specific situations. What are some things that you can point out about mind control and how I know we talk about media and how that kind of controls the masses because we've seen, I mean, anyone who's online has now probably seen this very scripted rolling out of a story that the mass media pitches where it's the same language, the exact
Yes.
same language. Is that one thing to be mindful of when you're looking at that?
It is. We all formulate our thoughts, our opinions, and our actions based on what we know. And we need to know our knowledge base has been deliberately altered. And it's
Mhm.
been deliberately altered in the education system since 1984. This is in my testimony in Transformation of America, when
Mhm.
global education first went into the school system. It changed names over the years. It's Common Core.
Yeah.
But the Common Core education, parents are appalled to see what has happened to their children's ability to critically analyze and to think logically
Yes.
through the school system. It's
Yes.
because they are taught what to think, not how to think.
Right.
History was rewritten in order to make them think that they could that we want socialism. Social sounds like a nice word,
Hmm.
So we all want socialism.
Hmm.
And then to compound the felony, they are able to take math and just take the scientific factual formula out of math. 2 and 2 is not 5, but they took that out, and the children have no concept whatsoever of the economic disaster that
Right.
socialism actually is. No, it's not free for everybody. We all pay.
Yeah.
And it's a slave society where a handful of big guys make all the money. But
Right.
all that was written out of education. So as we're learning to think free again, we need to go back to realize that we've had a couple of generations now that have been conditioned
Hmm.
through the education system, and they need to learn to think free and think beyond what they think they know.
Right.
And again, PTSD Time to Heal has that kind of information in it, because this is what Mark gleaned from the highest levels of mind sciences. And it helped me to reclaim my free thought after decades of robotic structured MK Ultra mind control.
Right.
And after I healed, after I deprogrammed and remembered what I was, supposed to forget, and had written it all out, I had to learn to think again. I had to learn to
Mm.
think beyond what I thought I knew. And
Right.
I had to learn to think beyond the horror of all that my life had entailed, to realize that even good people exist in the world. So
Yeah.
I had to think beyond. And it took brain exercise. And the brain exercises I used, and the way that Mark taught me to be able to expand my thinking, is in PTSD Time to Heal. So
Yeah.
that can apply to our children. It can
Right.
apply to everyone who has succumbed to mind control masked as a virus, because that's all COVID is
Yep.
mass mind control. I've
Yep.
never worn a mask. I never will.
I don't
Masks
either.
are used in mind control.
Yes, let's talk about that a little bit. So, before we move over to that, I want to just ask you, have you ever seen some of these videos? Because I have recently seen a video of a political figure, Nancy Pelosi, who appears to move in and out of some kind of control. She's having a conversation, and I want your opinion on this to see if this is something that we can point out to people to kind of understand. Is there some such thing as a trigger that makes people switch into almost like a different personality? I've seen these videos where her in particular, she's speaking to someone, and then all of a sudden her facial expressions, everything changes, and she starts saying something that's completely irrelevant to the conversation.
It can be contrived. There's much to learn. In Transformation of America, I think it gives a harsh reality into how mind control works
Mhm.
and how it appears. And access denied for reasons of national security shows how society is conditioned by it. But to be able to just look at someone and judge it takes a full understanding of how mind control works.
Right.
And I think a good example of that would be Michael Jackson. He was born into the same MK Ultra mind control project I was,
Yeah.
and he loved children. He
Mhm.
loved sang songs of peace and unity and love and joy, um, and yet was convicted on the pedophilia. And it needs to be examined what happened in his childhood, and was he
Right.
really in control of himself to even make that decision. Before we judge people, they need to be healed so that we know what they would do. Maybe he never would have touched a child had he been free,
Right.
but his MK Ultra mind control was so robotic and absolute, and he never had the luxury of healing.
Right.
He never and he wore the mask, which I think
Yes.
everybody needs to take a look at that, because
Yes.
masks depersonalize, and they stop a person from speaking.
Mhm.
We can't communicate with each other with the muffled voices.
Right.
And they also inhibit the amount of oxygen that goes to the brain. We need oxygen to our brains to think free. So
Yeah.
while people think are wearing these masks, they're harming themselves on so many levels and succumbing to mind control, which is a very deliberate. It's This is what COVID is all about. Yes, it's a virus. So is
Right.
the flu. So is
Yep.
SARS. So
Yep.
are so many others.
Yep.
But it is a virus, but it has a 99% survival rate. Why do we need a vaccine with a 95% success rate for a virus with a 99% survival rate? I mean, these numbers are not adding up
Right.
any more than the so-called election numbers added up. We all know the
Right.
election was stolen, you
Right.
know. But
Yeah.
but the media is going to tell us what they want us to think, because
Right.
there's so many people that are not capable of thinking beyond what they're told, because they've been conditioned in the school system and they've been conditioned for so many years.
Right.
When you
I
look
think
at
people too are looking for these salacious moments, like because they depict it in Hollywood films. So they think themselves, I couldn't possibly be, I'm not under mind control. I'm not under mind control. Meanwhile, they have a 24-hour news stream that they've been plugging into for the
Yeah,
last 20 years, but they don't see themselves as being under any kind of mind control
right,
because it's not like it's depicted in one of those videos I just talked about, or
right.
or on in a movie. So they're not
That's
they're
right.
not making the connection.
You can't tell somebody they're under mind control. They
Right.
have to see it, and they have to see it through a series of truths. Truth makes us free. And PTSD, time to heal. Again, it empowers people to be able to help others to wake up as well. Um, Mind control is all around us, and it's a sliding scale.
Mm,
There's varying levels of absolute robotic mind control.
okay.
Like there's like
Like
maybe military.
Manchurian Candidate type stuff?
Yes, for sure. Well,
Yeah.
George Bush Jr. was Manchurian Candidate type for sure, and that's in detailed in Transformation of America. He was deliberately groomed to take office because we have not had elections in this country since the after the Kennedy assassination, when electronic voting machines came in. They
Mm,
came in just to rig elections all along. Electronic voting machines is such a joke, but the people have been taking office ever since. Since I was on the inside in DC, I knew what the plan was, who was going to be put in when, and Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the final straw and bringing in the new world order. And by 2016, so many of us had actually woke up from the mind control, to be able to see that we had an opportunity to elect a president that actually represented we the people, we the peaceful, a president who was going to stand up for our constitutional values of freedom and justice for all. We finally saw that opportunity, and so many people voted for him that it broke the algorithm in the electronic voting machines. They weren't ready for that. That's why they freaked out so bad. And
mm,
then, so this time, in 2020, since they knew that there were so many of us that would break that algorithm again, they had to come up with a plan B, which was the mail in voting ballots and
right.
mass mind control through COVID.
Right.
So when COVID came in, it was for mind control of the masses. And I knew it, I recognized it, I heard the programming, because when knowledge is our defense against mind control, and once you have that knowledge, you will recognize it all around you, and be
Yeah.
able to stop it. So it was like I never caved into it, but oh my gosh, I was just screaming with everything I had. No, people, wake up!
Right. Right.
This is mind control.
Right.
Um, it's been difficult watching people cave into the fear, and
Yes,
to
it is.
actually just sit back and let their businesses be turned to dust and
Mhm.
ash
Mhm.
and being burned, and let the violence happen in our streets, with the media telling us, oh, that's a peaceful demonstration,
Right.
and people need to realize that they've been duped
Mhm.
and wake up. The
Yeah.
number one step to make, take off that mask,
Yeah.
take a deep breath, get some oxygen to your brain,
Yeah.
start thinking free, and realize you've been duped. And
Yeah.
then PTSD Time to Heal. It's on my website,
Mhm.
where people can have it in ebook form so they can have it now when they need it most, regardless of income,
Yeah.
because it has a pay what you can if you can option. So people
Nice.
can have the information. They need to start reclaiming their minds. They need to start helping and empowering their children
Yes.
to think
Yes.
free
Very
again.
important. Mhm.
It is, and then realize where the roots of this whole new world order began sinking in. That's why I participated in the Thousand Pieces documentary.
Yes, I can't wait to watch that. I didn't get to watch it yet, and it's on my list. I wanna sit down with my husband and watch it because I know it's interesting because I just, booked Sean Stone to be on on the podcast as well, and he's narrating it, so that's just amazing.
Yeah. Yes, and Joe Flynn was in it, and it deals with so um, much of what was happening, even with the election still. But it goes right back into the um, I think it's Memorandum 57 that Kennedy had written
Mhm.
just prior to his assassination, and was going to implement and quote splinter the CIA into 1,000
Yeah.
pieces.
Oh,
That's what it was about. Memorandum 57 was implemented by Trump just pretty recently to do that, and that's what the A Thousand Pieces documentary is about. It can be accessed on my website, or people can go to 1000pieces.com. And it's so powerful because it
yes.
shows how why Kennedy was assassinated, what happened after that, how the controls were gained,
Mhm.
and what we the people can do to reclaim our national sovereignty. Number one, to reclaiming that national sovereignty,
Mhm.
reclaim your personal sovereignty. Take off
Yes.
that sleep mask,
Your
and
natural
then
rights.
and then look at the roots of the human trafficking that's been going on. It is the funding mechanism of the New World Order.
Mhm.
That's why we're seeing so much corruption surrounding this. The people that are taking power or think they're taking power today.
Yeah,
They can only take as much power as we let them have,
that's
and
right.
we need to reclaim our own power to stop them from taking that power over us. Well, there's
Mhm.
no reason to allow that to go on. And A Thousand Pieces documentary is just very empowering for everybody to get a clear view of what's been going on.
I agree. I want to cover the significance of a little bit more of masks in cults because where do masks originate from and how are they used in control over people?
Well, in my case, it began with the Catholic veil, because I
Uh,
was raised in the Catholic Church, which was very much a part of the New World Order. They thought they were going to be the one world church in the New World Order. That's why there's so much pedophilia and so much human trafficking that was happening through the Vatican and the Catholic Church and
mhm,
all like that. But that veil, it covers the face and it depersonalizes. And then it went on into masks, in MK Ultra mind control. Um, I've seen masks used in any time when the face is just totally covered. It
mhm.
depersonalizes and makes a person feel like they're being silenced, and
Right.
that's the intention there. My own daughter was trafficked with a mask, and it's such an outrage to me on that regard too, to see little children
Children.
wearing masks and having experienced that with my own daughter. And it's so sad. It's like, oh, people, please hurry and wake up.
Mhm,
The New World Order is a global effort, obviously, New World Order.
mhm.
And that's why the COVID went worldwide, and why people were being forced to wear masks, and then social distance, 6 feet apart. You hear a
Mhm.
lot of satanic references. 6 feet apart is like 6 feet under to the
Yeah,
subconscious.
right.
And so you put a mask over that on top. It's just been really hard for people. I know that there's a lot of cultures that have used masks to keep the population under control.
Uh-huh.
Whenever I looked at China through the years and saw how the people, anytime you'd see views of China and the population, and they always had masks on,
Mhm.
and it was like, that's just mass mind control. It was so horrifying to me to see that, knowing what it meant
Right.
because of what my daughter had been through. And now here it's been imposed on all of us through the so-called China virus.
Right.
And here we are. So people need to wake up now, get
Yeah.
those masks off, and realize it is a powerful component of mind control.
Right. The psychological operation is quite something, right? Because the death rate of children is almost zero. There's almost zero deaths
Yes.
from children, but they flipped it and
You know
inverted.
our national debt,
I'm sorry.
but our annual national death rate is no higher than
I
usual.
know.
So
I
they've only
know.
simply renamed all other deaths COVID. We
That's
don't have
right.
heart attacks anymore. We don't
That
have
have flu.
pneumonia anymore. We don't
I know
have
it.
flu anymore. We've got all of us.
I know.
It's all an illusion, and
Right.
people bought into it out of fear. Out of
Right.
fear of
Well, and to get to them to mask their children, the psychological operation says now that your child, it's not for the child, it's for others. Now that's a tactic in itself, right? To think that to train you that you are dirty or you are sick. And so although it doesn't hurt you, you might hurt others. That's a psychological
it's
move.
It's mean. It's so sad to see the
Yeah,
children here when you get too close or anything like that. But like I said, I have never worn a mask,
me
and I
neither.
was in the store yesterday. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. They had hyacinth out already. I love the smell of hyacinth.
Oh. Oh
Ah,
my
so
goodness, I
I
love that
buried
too.
my face in the flowers, and it was like, oh my gosh! And the workers all came over and pulled their masks off to smell in it. And it occurred to me, we're giving up our senses. We're giving up we're
Mm,
giving up our ability to smell and to interact with each other, to hug each other, to be
right.
able to look each other in the eye, see each other's smiles,
Yeah.
and so
Depersonalizing.
it's not wear a mask doesn't harm anybody. It inspires them to be free.
Yeah. Oh,
That's a
that's
good.
such a great way to think of it because I've actually had people come up to me and thank me for not wearing a mask and
Yeah.
that they would like to be able to do it, but they just don't want the fight, which I understand. But there's also another component to what's happening here. And there's a group of people who are experiencing, and you've talked a lot about this, Stockholm syndrome. Can you explain Stockholm syndrome and what it is?
It's I'm not as familiar with it, but it is like when a woman, for example, is is beaten by her husband or something, and then she will not ever leave him or turn him in,
Right.
but stays with it, and it creates this dependency in the brain where people do that. I think that um, they just become dependent on their abusers to tell them what to do
Hmm.
after a while. I'm not sure exactly all the mechanisms on how it works, but it seems like it has to do with a suggestibility
Yeah.
because people aren't able to think free and think beyond it to get away from the abuse.
Right.
They're not able to think
But I see
beyond.
people coming to the defense of the government. And I wonder if that's not some version of Stockholm syndrome where they, well, they're just trying to keep us all safe. Well, they're just trying to help us and we can't blame them. They're just doing their jobs. This is the kind of rhetoric I hear from people.
Yeah, and then again, and like I said, so many generations have been conditioned in the school system to
Yes.
think to think that way and to follow the leader,
Yeah.
and they're just supposed to robotically follow and march to new world orders, and they've been conditioned for generations. So they're still just marching to new world orders and following the leader, when in fact we need to stop following leaders that we didn't elect.
Yeah.
And we need to start following our own strength of spirit, our own free thought.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
And realizing our own capability, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your story is so inspirational. If a human spirit can get through that and still persevere, what can't we overcome?
My body, I was tortured so much, and yet I'm capable of everything. My body does whatever I need it to do, and I celebrate that. I never take
Yeah.
that for granted. I'm so happy with that. But I learned that if mind control can reach into levels of the body to regulate blood flow like they do
Mm,
for like military special forces and the programming that they endure so that they can take a bullet and keep on going.
right.
um, if mind control can reach in that deep, then what can we do with our strength of spirit, realizing that our brains are capable of that? We can drive that. we
Right.
can we can choose that.
Right.
um, if they could program me for pain pleasure reversal, then I understand my brain mechanism of pain is saying, it's like an alarm going off saying, hey, you're hurt, pay attention.
Right.
So I know that alarm. So now I can pay attention to whatever it is my alarm tells me and then shut the alarm off. I don't have to feel that. We have so much capability within ourselves.
Yeah.
If there's the military special forces is programmed with no time to bleed, and it's because they have no concept of time because of their programming,
Hmm.
which programming does it erodes an ability to have continuity of thought, to be able to keep track of time. So there's no time to bleed. Hey, why not have no time for a cold, no time
Yeah.
for no time for COVID, no time for a virus?
Right.
So I do that, and I have no time for it,
Hmm.
and I stay healthy. It's
Yeah.
amazing what we're capable of. And having realized this and experienced it on such a deep level, on such a deep torturous level, and to have someone as wise as Mark to be able to empower me to to reclaim that self-control and to utilize that self-control on such a deep level
Right. I think we're
that,
seeing
that
hints
I
of
can do
it
that.
in the mainstream. We're seeing hints, and we have been over the last few years. People
Mm.
like Wim Hof have come out, who I don't know if you know him, but he has studied breath control for years and being able to, submerge into ice cold water and control that, control your physiological reaction with your breath. So it's very that's completely acceptable now. People understand that capability of being able to do that. So why have we not bridged that gap and realized that we can control almost anything?
We've learned to just listen, follow the leader, and listen to what we're being told. And we're being told how to be sick through the pharmaceutical companies. Big
Yep.
pharma has been
Yes.
programming people with
Ugh.
illness so they can sell their antihistamine. It's like flu season, everybody's sick, and
Mhm.
and then people kind of trigger to it and they get sick.
Oh yeah.
Instead, Instead, we need to realize we have the capability within ourselves to be able to have a defense against that. What a beautiful thing we're born with, and that we have this wonderful gift within us. To put a mask over it is eroding our immune system,
Yes.
and our
Making
belief
us
in
weak.
ourselves,
Hmm.
and it erodes it on a psychological and a physical level. It is
Yes.
a very unhealthy thing to do.
Yeah.
When we realize our own capabilities, it's such a celebration of life, and it's like we have got to get past this new world order, imposed mind control, erosion of free thought, so that we can realize our own human capacity and
Yes.
capability, and get past the suppression of the information on mind brain function, to
Right.
realize what our brains are capable of. It's so exciting. And PTSD Time to Heal has so much of that information in it that can
Yeah.
empower anybody. You don't have to have PTSD to benefit from the book, but
Right. but it helps you
It's
understand your
amazing.
own mind and your own capabilities.
Yes.
And you're right. This new world order stuff is getting old. This is old. We need to break out of this and elevate to a
Yes.
new level.
Yes, for sure. And that's why I'm so excited about the great awakening that has been going on. The fact that people are aware of it now and are seeing it. Awareness is the first step
Yeah.
towards positive change. And we need to get on with that positive, necessary change so
Mhm.
we can move forward into these exciting areas.
That's right.
Mark was telling me when he was studying in the mind sciences and everything, and how the military special forces, for example, had been programmed. They were taking martial artists.
Uh-huh.
Martial arts is like a self mind control thing where
Yes.
they can what seemingly superhuman capabilities because they have mastered the mind over their body because
Mhm.
they're aware of this what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so they did a study and to see who was stronger, of course the martial artist, because when we use that mind brain capability with the strength of the human spirit rather than outside influence,
Mhm.
we have unlimited capacities compared
That's
to
right.
what
Yeah.
what seems unlimited through mind control. And it's so exciting where we're going to be able to go with this phenomenal information. Hurry
I
up,
agree.
everybody!
I
Wake up from the
know.
Videocast.
Get on board. Where have you
Really
been?
wants to
I totally agree. I totally agree. I want to just talk a little bit about media because I think bringing understanding to people of how, again, answering that message of like, this is so unbelievable, this can't possibly be true. But when you break down the media, and how the media is controlled, there's 6 companies now that run 90% of what we hear all the time. And we have this media on our gas pumps. We have it everywhere we go. We can't go anywhere, all through the airport. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, it's it's edged its way into every facet of our lives.
Yes.
So how does media kind of operate? And who owns that? Who's in charge of that media?
It's definitely run by the deep state New World Order, and they've been covering up, for example, the Clinton crimes against humanity now since the early 90s.
Mhm.
People were talking about it then, and as soon as a reporter or anyone would bring it up, then they were often suicided. All of a sudden, they would become
Right.
suicidal and be
That's
killed.
become a mainstream joke, to
It
get
was a
Clintoned.
mainstream joke in the 90s. It was coined after the Clinton hit list that was circulating back when because they killed so many people. And
Right.
it's an absolute outrage that that kind of criminal activity has gone on for so long.
That
But
it's become a joke. Yeah.
it has taken over control of the media. It has worked, and then of course money talks.
Yeah.
So that you got a lot of money behind it, just like social media. They're the among the richest people in the world.
Mhm.
If the people were allowed to sue social media for the censorship and the
Right.
mind control that they have imposed on people, and the suppression of truth that makes us free, um, it would be really nice to be able to have that money stripped from them
Yeah.
and to be able to rebuild our country again, to be able to rebuild our lives, to be able to empower freedom, and to be able to restore justice to our justice system. That would be a really nice start.
Yeah.
Um, to be able to have the ability for freedom, but the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And when we get our
Yep.
freedom back, we better safeguard it this
That's
time.
right. You
We're
have
going
to
to have
work
to
at it.
and learn how to discern. I have got one media source that I'll watch, OAN, One America News.
Mhm.
They are better than most, but I will not take any story without double checking it,
Right.
not relying on a fact checker to do it for me.
Right.
To
Aren't
see,
those a joke? That
oh
is
my God,
that was just rich, wasn't
yeah,
it? You can
I
trace
know.
those fact checkers right back to people like George Soros, and I mean it.
I know.
That was
I
just
know.
rich when they came up with that.
I put out information on how masks were used in MK Ultra mind control, and the checkers said that it was wrong, and then the numbers were wrong. It's like you didn't ask my daughter. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you that makes me so mad that they can just tell us because like
Just
they're an
gaslight
authority.
it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I whenever I hear a news story, I will go to other sources and
Mhm.
get more confirmation before I will take that as fact.
Yep.
And another thing too is I will not watch too close because
Mm.
it's real discouraging. It's like when it can look like things are so grim if
Mhm.
we look at only what's happening today
Right.
instead of taking a higher view, rising above the
Right.
storm, gathering all of our knowledge and insight, and being able
Right.
to look beyond this moment to what's unfolding. Because y- when people start waking up en masse like this, it doesn't stop. Truth doesn't go away.
Right.
You don't unlearn truth. You know, it doesn't work that way. This is growing and growing. People are still waking up. The
Yes.
great awakening is expanding. It's still happening. So what we're being told today that we're all going to be under control now, and all the fear mongering that's out there. Look
Right.
beyond the fear. Think beyond that, and all of a sudden it's like easier to see what's really actually happening, what's
Right.
really unfolding. And
Right.
it's like what Mark and I we would talk about what it would take for this new world order to be unraveled. And it's so ingrained in society that it
Yeah.
was like, whoa, we just never could have envisioned it. Mark passed away. His life was interrupted, and he passed away in 2017. And I forever miss my soulmate and my hero
Yeah.
and my
I'm
best friend
sorry for your
and
loss.
all that. And I wish he was here to see what's
I
happening.
bet.
He would have the clearer view. He always saw above and beyond the storm to what was coming. As a matter of fact, before he passed away in 2017, we were able to get PTSD time to heal out. We
Yeah.
finally were able to get it out there. He couldn't do it because he had gotten it from the highest levels of mind scientists, science intelligence, and he was bound by laws of sedition.
Right.
But I wasn't bound by those laws because it was my experience to heal with those methods. So I got to reveal it. So
It
PTSD
was your
time to heal is like,
story. Yeah.
yes, it's written from my application and experience in healing. But Mark was so excited that we succeeded in finding a way to legally get that out there, and all he said, people are going to need it because once he knew we had broken the algorithm and that Trump was in, he was like, oh, people are going to start seeing truth now. The swamp is going to
Wow.
drain, and as it drains, they're going to see the corruption and the human trafficking, the pedophilia, the
Yep.
human harvesting, the um, the the basis of adrenochrome, the vast murders, the horrors that have gone on behind the scene all these years. People are going to see it, and that's going to be traumatic.
Yeah.
And he said they're going to need to have the
Heal.
healing methods that I used. And he was so happy to have these easy to apply methods out there. It was like, okay, this is gave him so much peace of mind because he foresaw beyond the um, the horrors that people were experiencing in it right after Trump was elected, and the people kind
Yeah.
of went,
Yeah.
a little goofy, and the media went
Yes. Started
absolutely goofy with
unraveling. Things started really
yeah, yeah,
unraveling. I
yeah,
mean, have you
it's
ever seen such a push to hate someone ever in your life? I haven't.
well, it's so illogical because they have to go with an emotion that's not
Yes.
based in any logic, and
No.
that people don't even know why they hate. They just
I
because
know.
I was told to,
Yeah.
they don't
And
have
it
a
is
logic
it
for
is visceral hate too.
it.
Visceral hate. And
Mark
and
could
and that to
see
me
that
should
stuff.
be a red flag. Why does this force want you to hate something so much, that someone you've never even met?
Well, when Mark was seeing that happening, and like I said, how he saw beyond, he rise above the moment to see beyond, and it was easy to see that people were just being manipulated
Mhm.
and then led to believe that more people hated than did. It's the same thing. Like, do we really believe that many people voted for Biden? I mean,
No.
you know, but that's what the media tells us,
Yeah.
and they're telling us,
And you're
oh, all
crazy. Oh, you're
these,
crazy if you that's
yeah,
gaslighting. These are all tactics. I mean, they're
these many people
so
hate, and they don't. It's not
no.
that way. There's not that many people that are are hateful like that. There's not that many people that want to destroy
Yeah.
our culture. There's a lot of mind control, and
Mhm.
that people are waking up from it.
Yeah.
And as more and more people wake up from it, we're going to all realize what I was very slow to realize, and that's that there are far more good people in this world than there are bad. There is so much more caring people and people with compassion, people who do think free and love each other, who do want to hug again.
Yeah.
Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I have seen that so clearly with the extremes of my life from the swamp to now, to be able to see that it's a very, very, very big difference in what we're told is a majority of people hating versus the small handful that hate. It is a small handful of criminals that have been implementing this new world order. When people read Transformation of America,
Mhm.
they'll see that it's the same handful of criminals
Same.
over and over and over again. It's
And it's
like they're hiding behind a
generational.
wizard's. Yeah,
Generational.
they hide behind a wizard's curtain and make this illusion like there's a whole bunch of them, and there's not. And
Mhm.
we need to realize our own goodness again. We need to realize the goodness in humanity, realize that that's where our strength is.
Yes.
And
And it's the
um,
antidote to the darkness,
it is.
our creativity, our discussion, this discussion that
Yeah,
we're having right now, this stuff that we're putting out there is truth. And that's the
yeah.
antidote to the darkness.
It is. It is. And what appears to be so pervasive darkness right now is just what has been behind the scene for so many years
Mhm.
finally come to light.
Yeah.
Now's our chance. Now's our time to be able to fix this.
Yeah.
Now's our time to gather our strength of spirit and love each other again. Pay attention to our own communities.
Yes.
Realize that we can make a difference right in our
Right.
own backyard for our children's
Right.
sake.
That's one
Pay
thing I've
attention.
talked about quite a bit is because there's always this pull to form a group, right? Though we need to form a group and, we're going to bring power to the people. And that's not really the way we achieve that, right? We achieve that with our own individual actions every day. If you
Every day.
want to see no racism, don't be racist and model that for your children and model that for everyone around you. If you want freedom, model freedom. You be who you want to see in the world. And I know that sounds cliche, but that's how simple it is. Because if
It
we
is.
all did that, where would we be?
I just live the love I am every day. That's an easy way to live,
Yeah.
and it gives a clarity to thinking, and it gives a clarity of vision
Hmm.
to everything around us. I know in my local community that the judges that are in place are very strong against pedophilia. They're very strong against human trafficking in this area where I live because people are aware of it and they are
Right.
intolerant of it because that's our innate human nature to
Right.
not tolerate that kind of horrible
Yeah.
abuse. They keep free thought in the school system here, and our local sheriff is constitutionalist all the way.
Mm.
Pay attention to your local sheriff. He has more
Yes.
power than anybody.
Yep.
If people realized those kind of structures just right in their own backyard, they would realize the impact that we can start making from
Yes.
local levels on up. That's the way we reclaim our national sovereignty is
Right.
just to begin right at home.
That's so true. That is so true. And we've talked about that several times on this podcast that you really do. We cannot just be complacent and think that our only role in our society is voting every 4 years. That's not it.
Right.
That is not
Pay
it.
attention to those midterms. And, I don't know what we're going to do now. We all know that the elections are 100% completely rigged,
Right.
and we're going to
We're going to
still
need a
have
different
to
system.
we're going to have to restore election integrity for there to be any more elections at all. I am confident that there is so much awareness that has been raised those directions that we will start bringing it about. We the people, we the peaceful,
Yes.
will start bringing it about. Like I said, from local levels on up, and start making the difference. Take the 1776 commission that was put through on executive order and bring it into our school systems, restore truth in education again, teach kids
Right.
how to think, not what to think,
Right.
put truth back in our history so that history
Yes.
doesn't just keep repeating itself. We have to know where we've been to know where we're going. And
Absolutely. And to
we can
not repeat
restore all
mistakes.
that.
And to
Mhm.
not repeat atrocities and mistakes.
Yes.
It's mind-blowing how, you see some things unfold right now, and it's like, "Really? I
Yeah.
thought we said we were never gonna do this kinda thing again."
Yeah.
We have
Right.
museums about this stuff.
Yeah, and well, that's why a lot of monuments and everything were being torn down too, because they're trying to eradicate history. Because if
Mm,
they can eradicate history,
they
then
can
they
change it.
yes, yes, and change the future. They figure they can control the future by controlling history. So
Yeah,
we've
yeah,
we've got to be aware of that and restore truth to our knowledge base, because again, knowledge is our defense against mind control. Our knowledge base has been altered, and we've got to restore truth to our knowledge.
absolutely. Have you experienced censorship? Now, your body of work is
Yeah.
what, 30 years? I mean, you must have encountered some serious censorship, people trying to shut you up. You know, you drop names like crazy in your book, and yet here you are.
Yes, and Mark and I had to learn how to walk that fine legal line, because national security was invoked on my testimony in 1995, which is why we released that testimony for Congress in book form in Transformation of America.
Right.
By having the National Security Act invoked on my testimony, it was then I could keep speaking out, but I would never see any justice for it. And the censorship that national security brought just completely censored it out of the media, out of
Right.
any ability to advertise, any kind of promotion. There's absolutely the laws of no self promotion has just been very binding. And when Mark first rescued me, his life savings were illegally confiscated. They the
Wow.
usual satanic reversal thing. He saved a life, so they took his life savings. But that came out of um, the Department of Justice. The Attorney General then was Dick Thornburgh, and
Mm.
him and Senator Byrd, who was my owner in MK Ultra, had taken all of Mark's life savings, which was a very substantial. It was $3 million back then, which we were
Wow.
going to use to survive with
Right.
and to be able to get information out. Well, geez, between being completely financially devastated and being censored for so-called reasons of national security,
Right.
it made it extremely difficult to have a voice. So by having just a small voice out there, blowing the whistle on this has been like having a dog whistle that very few could hear, or
Right.
something. But nevertheless, we still were able to get truth out there. We've just been relentless. We
Yes, you
stayed
have.
relentless with it.
You have.
We eventually spoke to crowds of thousands with even with people from the United Nations and the World Bank and everything else, because people did recognize the truth and were sharing it among themselves. This
Yes.
was before the internet even. This
Yes.
was but people still by word of mouth is like, they were spreading the truth. So in spite of censorship, there's always a way to say what needs to be said,
Hmm.
and there's always a way to be able to get information out there when people take the truth and share it with each other.
Right.
And so that's what we did. It was extremely difficult, and censorship it, is still going on today. But I just don't let it slow me down. It's something I've I've experienced ever since I came running out of hell, screaming, that hell existed and people didn't even know it existed. And
Right.
then to have censorship on top of it's been it's been an extreme road just to stand by truth all these years, but there's no other way to be. This
Right.
is an important truth. It's a crucial truth. It needs to be out there. And I appreciate people like giving me voice and amplifying it and getting the word out there so that other people can spread the word too. And
Yeah.
truth makes us free.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I have an issue with injustice. I've never been good with it. I'm- I have, I really have never been, probably to a fault. It just eats me up, injustice. I cannot, I still struggle with it today, just with everything going on and just trying to find peace. How have you been able to live like this? You're just beaming, glowing with
It,
light,
if
and you've had such injustices. How do you transfer that? Is it gratitude? What is it that helps
it's
you get there?
I think the ultimate justice is positive change through public awareness. I've long since given up thinking it would be a judge banging a gavel and saying,
Yeah.
wow, you've been through that, or
Mhm.
or them giving Mark's money back, that they
Right.
illegally confiscated, anything like that. I've seen so much injustice my whole life, beginning when my father received immunity from prosecution for the abuse that he had subjected me to.
Right.
Um, I've it's something I've experienced my whole life. Our justice system is totally corrupted. Again, it's why I did 1,000 pieces. It shows it and
Yeah.
shows how and why and where. Um, we've got a long way to go to restore any
Yes.
justice to our system. But like I was saying, we got it right here on my local level. We have justice. They will not tolerate um, any kind of child abuse like that. It's good to see it happening, and it's good to see people waking up, because it's only as people wake up and demand that kind of justice that we're going to be able to reclaim it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's just going to be the same old attorneys
Right.
manipulating minds
Right.
with NLP and manipulating the minds of jurors with NLP. Um, no, we've got to restore justice by our Constitution. Um, I believe that through this transition, at these powerfully transitional times that we're living right now, we're going to be able to see that finally happen. Um, I just, I just rest my sense of justice in positive change through public awareness. I'm, I don't
Right.
think I'm ever going to see it any other direction.
Right. And that's why you continue to do your work,
Right? Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because that's our outlet to try to bring awareness, and so you have to put it out there. It's your outlet to deal with injustice.
It is. It's so hard seeing the nonsense that's gone on against um, this administration and the
Yeah.
whole family, the whole Trump family during these past 4 years. And I've been, just screaming, reminding people that we are empowered. This is our time. Stop waiting on big government
Yeah,
to
to
come in and
save
make the
you.
difference. That's
Yeah.
what that's what the New World Order is about. That's
Yeah,
what the perpetrators are about.
that's
No,
right.
we need to take responsibility for our own lives in order to be able to restore some justice. It's very, very hard to see that kind of injustice going on when I know how wicked and cruel and inhumane these deep state New World Order perpetrators really are.
Are yeah.
To have seen that has been difficult. But with that said, there's so much justice in how much awareness came to light on human trafficking in this administration. This is the first president who's ever
So
stood
true.
up against human trafficking instead of profiting off it. You
Yes.
know, I'm
Yeah,
so
so
thrilled
true.
with that. To me, that is an ultimate justice. It's been an ultimate justice to see that the education system's been exposed and
Mhm.
that there are measures in place now that we can implement if the people will just realize, that we've got the 1776 commission to be able to reclaim our school systems. That with the kind of awareness that came through the injustices that this administration endured came the the ability and the propensity for us to be able to reclaim control over our own lives. The Great
Mhm.
Awakening was massive before COVID happened, and we can get right back to that
Right.
Great Awakening. It is still
Mhm.
going on. It's just that the media is not allowing us to even use the hashtag anymore, Great
Right.
Awakening,
Right.
or say that it's happening. But yeah, we can say it. And yes, it is happening. And so that is the counterbalance to the injustice that we've all seen, is that we are empowered and this is our time to make the difference.
Yeah. How would you say that this exposure to human trafficking? I had Dr. Lee Merritt on the other day. She's one of a frontline doctors who's been very outspoken about treating COVID and how masking is not effective. She's been very outspoken. But what she's come to realize, and she's had a great awakening, is that things like blood diamonds and the drug cartel and those things pale in comparison to human trafficking. This is her realization over this last 9 months or so. And what because you've been working on in this field for so long and bringing awareness, how can you put some kind of you know uh, understanding of how big the awareness is now compared to when it was, when you first started?
People had no idea that human trafficking was going on. Senator Byrd always said, good people don't think to look for this kind of criminal activity. And
Right.
he referred to it as white slavery back then. And
Mm.
people were just completely unaware of it. For one, the component of mind control must be weaved into the whole equation in order for people to start understanding better how human trafficking has operated for so long. It's an invisible mind control is an invisible menace, and they haven't seen it. The human trafficking ops that were going on across the Mexican border,
Mhm.
especially, were tied directly in with the Clinton cocaine ops or the CIA cocaine ops that were coming across the border. And the when the wall went up, it had such a huge impact on
Oh, I
the
didn't even
ability
think
for that
about
kind of human
that.
trafficking. Yes, it
Didn't
it
even
was one
think
of the
about that.
greatest justices I could ever imagine, because that's what it took at that point. The free flow of drugs and children and humans across the border were beyond most people's imagination
Right.
or ability to even begin to grasp. But when the wall went up, that gave them a pretty good view into it. So it's been through a series of events that people have been shown what's been going on. And
Yeah.
that is part of the Great Awakening from mind control, so that we can see the reality of what's been going on and be able to stop it once and for all.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, I didn't even really think about that. I don't know why I never correlated that before with the wall. But yeah, of course, that would hamper it, wouldn't it?
Oh yes, and Trump said it all the time. Ivanka said it all the time too, and for the wall. But that had become necessary because the criminal activity was so pervasive, and it was structured deliberately on the groundwork for NAFTA, which is detailed in Transformation of America. But the groundwork for NAFTA, which was the first giant steps towards implementing the New World Order,
Yeah.
were rooted in the white slavery, the human trafficking operations, and the drug operations that were so much a part of the Clinton administration or the Clinton controls that they have been all these years and implementing that. One of Hillary Clinton's mentors, Madeleine Albright. She was also a Secretary of State. But back in those days, she was head of the Organization of American States. And the human trafficking ops that were going on then were so extensive in the islands around like St. Thomas. And then now finally we hear of Epstein Island. But all that came about with the wall going up, the whole human trafficking operations finally being exposed, and we finally got a glimpse into the magnitude of it. And of course, that all ties right in with the Clintons. It ties right in with Madeleine Albright and all that they had established and rooted in all those years. So it's good to see so much come to light because it's been going on for so long.
Right.
And we need to realize that once, Epstein Island is shut down, there's going to be another island, and there are more islands. Right. We just need to open our eyes, face the reality, and protect our children. We need to be aware that so many missing children, and we need to stop. We need to stop it now.
I think a lot of people have the question, like, why? Why? Because I always think, like, if you're not a consumer of straight up evil, it's hard for our brains to understand evil and where it comes from and why people do it. So can you shed a little light on that? What is the payoff for this New World Order agenda? What's the payoff for human trafficking? How deep, does that go?
Aside from the money, one of the biggest aspects of it that my daughter and I experienced and were used in was for compromising politicians, judges, whomever, border guards, whoever needed compromising, whoever they needed to be complicit. They would use sexual perversions and then film them and use it as blackmail. Back in the day when my daughter and I were used, they had the old VHS tapes. Right. They were massive. Things weren't as hidden as they can be now, and they weren't. But they were still being covertly filmed everywhere. It was the way of life. It's what they did. These perpetrators do not trust each other. They all have blackmail on each other. They all have the tapes. That's what Epstein had. That's what he was about.
Well, every once in a while, something gets leaked, like the new photos of Hunter Biden.
Back in the day, Michael Dante, who was a part of Hollywood, the whole Hollywood satanic pedophile, horrible human trafficking ops. Yeah. There, he had these giant vaults of videotapes that he kept for the deep state New World Order criminals. And they all knew they were there, and they all knew they had them on each other. They knew that when they were indulging in sexual perversions, that it was being covertly filmed, or that it was, that there were the little cameras and stuff. But it was just their way of life. They went for the perversions. So they were either bought off with money, or they were bought off with blackmail. So it's gone on a long, long time, and it's worked effectively for generations now.
Right.
So
well, I think that's why we see it on both sides of the aisle too, right? This illusion that the one side is better than the other is just that. It's an illusion, right?
Yeah.
It really is. These politicians, there's a revolving door in and out of CEO companies and then back into government. And it's, 40-year career criminals here.
I think sometimes too, you look at like occultism and Satanism, and when children who are raised in that or are subjected to that, it leaves them highly suggestible all their lives, and it can pull them into this whole dark world that we're seeing being exposed. The mind control running through it is so extensive, and it's trauma-based mind control, and it's horrific. It's very torturous. It's got to stop. We got to understand mind control and stop it. Reclaim free thought, and it will make it much easier to ensure that this kind of of criminal activity never gains hold again.
Yeah, we have a great
It's all about
opportunity
power and
here.
control. Yeah.
We have-
This is our time. Now's our chance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Where can people connect with you, Cathy?
On my website, it's not censored. It's trance-formation.com. And I've got podcasts, and I've got, I post a lot of blogs on there, and my books are available there. PTSD Time to Heal is available on my website. All the books on my website are secured. And, and that's important because in these days of war on truth,
Yeah.
there's many pirated ebooks out there that
Oh,
with
interesting.
information has been altered. So if people are getting the information through pirated ebooks, they're altered, and they need to know that. And it's being done very deliberately to undermine the truth. But the truth is secured on my website on trance-formation.com. And there's ways to contact me through the site too, if people want
Perfect.
to talk direct.
Before we go, Cathy, can you tell us what are your health practices to stay healthy and to keep your mind, where you want it to be and your attitude to where is there anything tangible, like concrete, that you can tell us you do every day to maintain your health?
Um, I eat well, I sleep well, and I spend a lot of time in nature, and I
Mm,
spend a lot of time with my pets. There's,
yeah.
I highly recommend. I think that's why so many PTSD military vets get their rescue dogs, and the dogs rescue them right back because animals are so pure. They're unconditional love. That's a very important balance to every single day, is to take that time in nature, take time to, breathe in the air, and live healthy and happy. Take long walks. Just enjoy
Yeah.
the beauty that's around us.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I hope I didn't keep you too long. I feel like I could talk to you forever.
Oh, it's been wonderful. It's just, there's so much to discuss, and it's really nice, and it's exciting to see your smiling face and twinkling eyes, and the happiness and the possibility that we both know is there when
Yes.
people wake up and realize their own strength of spirit and the capabilities that we have within it. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is, and it's so simple, really. All we have to do is say, "No, we're not doing this anymore." It's so simple, but it's so complicated, but, it's such a simple thing. We just have to say, "No, I'm not doing that
Yeah,
anymore."
yeah. Truth is simple.
Yeah.
Lies are complicated. Mark always
Yes.
said that, and it was always a nice reminder. And
Yeah.
Mark always would say wise things like that, like, um, winning is not an event, it's a process.
Yeah.
And it's just a reminder that there's progress and process that we can apply to every single day, and every single day is more opportunity to be able to move forward in light of love, peace, and happiness, and be free.
Oh, that's a beautiful place to end. Thank you so much, Cathy. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you and getting to know you a little bit. And I just can't thank you enough for being such a beautiful voice for freedom and truth, and for having the perseverance to pull through this long, standing on your truth and spreading awareness to everyone that needs to hear it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If the naturally inspired movement makes sense to you, let's do this together and transform the medical model and help people take charge of their health. Learn more about how you can join the Naturally Inspired movement by going to naturallyinspiredadvocate.com or call me at 970-475-4862.